Hannah, thanks for inviting me over to your home studio.
Thanks for coming. I really am excited.
Hannah is one of our artists in residence. How long have you been with Hearts and Art?
It's
almost a year.
Not quite a year, almost a year. It will be a year in May.
Wow. How has it changed you as a person?
How's it? That's a loaded question.
I know, but it's a good question because it changes everyone, I think.
Yeah, no, it has. I've definitely learned a lot about how cancer affects people. But when I say that I've learned a lot about how cancer affects people, I mean that I can see it for myself now. I see these visible changes that people go through, and I see what devastation can happen to it. But not only that, I can also see the goodness that comes out of it, because even though we are on the 8th floor at Methodist, there's still so many people there who have so much that they find is worth living for, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now. But even though you would think of the 8th floor oncology place as a somber place, it's really not. These are people that are trying to live, people that are just trying to, go get back to their lives. They just go to the hospital and they get their treatment, and, their treatment can be harsh, obviously, but they still trek through it. And seeing it myself has changed me. It really has. So
watching them try to keep like some sort of normalcy. And that's kind of what we do. We just kind of, we're able to like do something normal for them.
Do something normal for them and bring at least a little bit of joy into their lives.
Yeah. So when Hannah was giving me the tour of her studio, she was like, "You should make something."
Yeah. I'm all about that.
So we're gonna make something. So this is a multi-camera shoot, and what are we gonna make?
Okay, so we're gonna be making some alcohol ink coasters. And I personally am in love with alcohol inks. I've covered this in resin so you can see how shiny it is. And because I just thought about doing this project today, I've not cleaned up the edges. So it's a little
no one
sharp,
will judge you, I promise.
Yeah, this one you can definitely see the edge on this one.
That's so.
But
I kind of like that, but
yeah, we'll give you guys some close-ups. But these are going to be made today by Richard and I. I'm going to show him how to make that particular style, but he's going to choose the colors because it's more fun that way. So blank coasters here. So 4 inches by 4 inch coasters. Should we just dive right into it?
Sure. Is this a project that can be done, that you would do on the 8th floor?
If I can find some alternative media, I would. Okay. Unfortunately, I've not been able to introduce this as a project for the 8th floor, because the fumes really are toxic. So if you're going to be doing this project at home, watch out for that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to clean the surfaces. We're just going to help me actually.
Yep.
We're going to clean the surfaces of the tiles with our alcohol inks.
What's been your favorite project on the floor so far that you've done? I guess Hannah.
That's a good question.
I should rephrase that. Hannah right now is currently our only artist. We have some that just recently started. So Hannah does 4 programs a week right now.
1, 2, 3, 4. With sometimes if we have extra window paintings, I'll overflow
to 5.
Up to 5, yeah.
So you do outpatient stuff and inpatient stuff, art classes. What has been your favorite in either or?
Well, I'd say overall, my favorite is the window painting project. That one, honestly, has pushed me to be a different type of artist, because I'd never really done window painting before. That was new to me. But I was not a stranger to working on large pieces. That was the difference. Is that I've done bigger pieces before, so I understand. I guess looking at it a little bit differently, looking at the pictures a little bit differently, and then just going for it on the windows with the paints. but it's just a fun little mental exercise for me when I go into a room and I literally don't know what they're gonna ask me. Like, they could ask me for roses, they could ask me for a Christmas tree, they could ask me for a whole tree, they could ask me for Starry Night, and I have to be ready to paint it.
Random animals.
Random animals, which is great. Like, it's a great little mental exercise for me. I have so much fun doing those, especially Starry Night. Starry Night.
That was beautiful.
Favorite. Starry Night is seriously one of my favorite paintings. So it's just fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we do them individualized for each patient, and then when a new patient comes in, they can either keep what's up there or we get to change it out. And it's very interesting oftentimes how one person will customize it. They'll add paw prints or a certain animal, and then the next person wants to keep it almost because of that same reason, and they all have like their own little connection to it.
Yeah. It's almost like a collaborative painting in a way. So yeah, I love that collaborative atmosphere too. So it's really hard to choose one though, but
I won't make you.
I'm gonna use orange as my first color, and because I want more of that watercolor effect, I'm gonna dilute it. Now pick a spot where you want a good portion of the color to be. Keep in mind also that with alcohol inks, you can sort of put a color somewhere and hope that it stays there, but it's really gonna do its own thing. So that's why we have the brushes to guide us. The brushes are gonna guide it just a little bit. Now, sort of look to see where you've put that alcohol ink. And we're gonna put a little drop there. Get my brush. I'm gonna use my alcohol as my water, I guess. Kind of like my water. So I'm gonna wet it, and then I'm gonna spread it. Now I can do back and forth brush strokes. I can do up and down brush strokes. Scribble anywhere you want to scribble. And then say maybe I want to dilute a certain portion. We'll just add a little more alcohol there. Spread it, dilute it, which means that you're making the color a lot more thin. And so the alcohol ink, while you're working on this, it's gonna do what it wants to do. So it's spreading. I put the color in some places, but it's still gonna do what it's gonna do. Now I'm rinsing it with the alcohol. Keep in mind that it's all being rinsed with alcohol, not water. Now we're on to color number 2.
Should you go like dark to light? Does it matter?
I usually go from light to dark because you can always add color. You cannot take the color away.
Okay.
So it's good question.
Thank you.
Very good job, Richard. So notice how, I'll demonstrate that again. I actually just put this alcohol in a straight line. Look what it's doing here. It's spreading the color for me so that I don't have to spread it. Now I just rinsed my brush with that alcohol. I could spread it, but it sort of messes up that really pretty unique texture that alcohol inks brings. Let's say I want to put a little, what do I want to put? Let's put some pink. I like pink. You can tell these have been used quite a bit. Put a little bit more. I love these things so much. Spread it. And I can use the alcohol ink to dilute it. Now I put it right there on the edge.
Yeah, it's like moving.
Yeah. So just the alcohol ink itself makes it move, pushes it forward or backward. So I could put a little on the edge here. And then it's gonna fall towards this edge because it's curved. And that's what it does. So, do you want to get started while we...
You okay?
Dry?
Yeah, sure.
Now I'm just gonna put a little bit there because I want a little pink there. And then I'm gonna let this dry for a couple minutes before I add my next color so that you can see what happens when you put color on top of dry alcohol inks.
How long does this take to dry? Just a couple minutes?
Just a couple minutes, yeah. Maybe 5 minutes or so. So I'm just gonna guide this paint down here, wipe it off. And let it do its thing.
Could you do it where you just do that and then?
You could. Can I do that?
Kind of.
I like guiding it. At least these days I like guiding it. So if you want to do that, we could have it go there. 3 drops or 4, whatever. Pick your third color. The key is having a lot of that alcohol. I'm even going to add more on top of this. And then we can pick it up and guide it. It's really pretty.
Do you have a favorite story or anything about a patient that discovered something during class, or that was so responsive to window art, or?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it really truly is hard to pick just one patient. But I can think of one person recently who I'd seen her in outpatient before, and she's been with me during live painting and had seen me do at least one piece and a few other small pieces. So she had been coming for quite a while, so I got to get to know her just a little bit. And then all of a sudden, I got, one day I was in the hospital doing window painting, and I got a request for a room that may or may not want window art or anything at all. So I stopped by, see what she wanted, and to my surprise, it's this one woman patient on the 8th floor. And I was, yeah, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about her now, because things can happen so rapidly with patients. So yeah, I saw her there, was super surprised, and had a great time talking to her there. And I asked her if she wanted the window painting. So of course she said yes. She didn't have the energy to do anything, but she said yes to the window painting. And I ended up doing a picture of a rose, like a big giant rose for her on her window. And even though she and I had gotten to know each other a little bit, and we could spark up good conversation, she was quiet for a large part of that window painting. But every time I looked at her, she was always watching me paint. She was always watching me. And so, you know, she liked it. And I even asked her, is this going okay? Do you like this? And so, gosh, what happened after that? I was nearing the end of my painting, and she looks at it, and then she looks at me, and she says, wow, nobody's ever done anything like that for me. I'm like, my heart. Yeah, there's a lot of stories that are similar, and I'm just glad that we're able to do something like that for her, because it was a shock to her that she ended up in the hospital too. So she thought she was doing so well.
There's so many like stop you in your tracks moments. You're like, oh, I get to witness this. I get to be a part of this. I get to facilitate it. That you get to do a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
Can I start while we talk?
Yeah, you can.
I'm just going to play.
What
has been the most surprising part about being with Hearts Need Art? What has surprised you the most?
What has surprised me the most about Hearts Need Art as an organization?
Well,
or just... Because, of course, the patients, there's, you know, there's always something going on there.
But it usually, like, people have an idea of what it's going to be.
Oh, I think I know my answer.
Okay.
So the most surprising thing for me has been how open you guys are to the different types of activities that we have. How open you guys are to experimenting and doing different activities. So recently we had a collaboration between the writing artists and people who go in and do bedside writing, and the artists like myself, going in there and illustrating what these patients have been writing and putting together in words. Now we get a chance to put it together in visual form.
Isn't it fun to
It
be
was a lot
able
of fun.
to explore and
Mhm. Yeah.
to experiment, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Like,
Yeah, experiment, yeah.
I think we're so lucky that we get to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to experiment no matter what kind of setting you're in, just keeping your mind active.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I learned myself going through some of the things that I go through with an autoimmune disease. Just keeping your mind active takes work, but the benefits are well worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Hands down. Just put my hand down.
Literally.
Hands down.
Do you have any other practice for like self-care or do you play instruments or do you
I do love to hike, actually. I feel like being part of nature is part of my self-care routine. Being part of nature and just being outside when it's cool enough for me to be outside. And I'm also the kind of person that loves to sleep in, so
so by the time you're awake it is not cool
it
enough
is
outside.
not cool out, is my point. So, but if you're a morning person, I highly recommend going outside. For a hike. Or just walking, really, just walking. Gosh, what else do? I mentioned the gardening, but when I say gardening, really what I mean is I go outside and talk to the plants and I tell them that they're doing a great job doing what they're doing and keep it up because I want them to be happy because they feed me and they make me happy. So it's a nice little system we got going on.
And it works.
It works. It does work.
That's good.
Water helps, but that does work.
Right. A little bit.
That looks really good. That is.
I ain't ruined anything.
No.
Oh.
I love that.
Okay. What excites you about Hearts Need Art? And we're expanding soon. We're getting busier. Like what makes you excited to about Hearts Need Art's future?
I think that continuing what Hearts Need Art is doing in other places, that's more exciting to me. Other places and maybe in other fields other than oncology, that would be really amazing if we could branch out into different fields. And I'm excited about also the research, some of the research that's been coming out of our this little organization. Because I feel like more people need that scientific backing, I guess. You know, what the arts actually does on paper. And I feel like it is possible to get it.
Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, we've done a couple of research projects, and because it's sort of like we know the answer, but you have to prove it to people.
Yeah.
And it's been cool to be able to do that. Oh, we've got some orange happening.
I love it.
I don't know what's going on.
Like all of this, the lines that are happening, I love that.
Yeah, that is on purpose.
Of course it's on purpose.
Right. What would you say to someone who is watching the video, who's never heard of us, who has heard of us but has not maybe volunteered, come to Shadow, maybe donated? Like, why do you think it's so important that we have arts accessibility?
The arts really do bring a lot of mental stability in many forms that I can't explain right now. And you have to see it to believe it, because a lot of times when I tell people that I work with the arts, it's one of those things where they need that hard proof that we were just talking about. They need that hard proof. And so if you just come to the hospital, see it for yourself, you will be able to get that proof with your eyes. I feel like Hearts Need Art does bring a lot of humanity to the hospital setting. And yes, hospitals are, helping people in any way that they can medically. There still needs to be that human element within the hospital, and that's what we bring to it. So that's actually what I would say to anybody looking to invest in the arts and invest in the hospital, invest in Hearts Need Art. you really have to see it to believe it. And I feel like Hearts Need Art we're doing whatever we can to show people what we can do for the public, for these patients.
That is perfect.
Oh.
That was perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. All
We'll
right.
just stop there then. Hannah,
Well,
you can see Hannah every day on the floor.
Done
When
here.
you come to Shadow, email me to come visit it and hang out. Hannah, I'm sure will be there. Hannah, thank you very much for having me over.
Yes.
How do we finish this up? How does this... Or we just let it dry?
If you're finished putting your colors on it, just let it dry and let it do its thing. And I will put resin on top of it. So I'll do the messy part.
Great. I'll come back for that. I like to make a mess.
Yeah.
I've already made a mess here in your studio. Thanks, Hannah. You're the best.
You're the best, Richard.
Oh,
Thanks for coming to visit me.
Thanks for having me.
Came to visit me, guys.
We're going to go have coffee now.
Okay. I love coffee.
Bye, everyone.